Everything that goes up comes down. Is that the story of IRFC, Indian Railway Finance Corporation? Let's analyze it. If you invested rupees 1 lakh in this railway stock in 2022, it would be worth 8 lakh in 2025. IRFC looks like the perfect PSU story. क्या आपको पता है कि इस सफल कहानी में अब 5 बड़े खतरे और रिस्क छुपे हुए हैं, which every investor is ignoring. So first, stagnation in core financial numbers. Second, over-dependence on Indian Railways. Third, diversification risk. Fourth, deep discount bonds, a risky bet. And number 5, Anand's story sounds great, but is it enough? Do watch the entire video to understand each of these 5 risks. So let's dive deeper into the first risk. ये एक चार्ट है financial numbers का. So sales, net profit, AUM and disbursement. Green chart है AUM का, so you can see the AUM going up. Sales is also up, net profit up. Now look at the disbursement chart. It has crashed. Now 23-24, 20-24-25. So from 1 lakh crore in 21-22, it is now almost negligible in the last 2 years. You may ask why. It is because Indian Railways, its only customers, stopped borrowing through IRFC in the last 2 years. And reason, जो government का budgetary support है, Indian Railways का, was very high in the last couple of years. तो उनको पैसे की जरूरत ही नहीं थी. Now second big risk is the over dependence on Indian Railway. If you look at the financial numbers, almost 90% of the revenue comes from Indian Railway. Now look at the AUM, 2.7 lakh crore in 1920, gone up to 3.68 lakh crore, almost 1 lakh crore increase. Now coming to 21-22, 4.21 lakh crore, almost close to 75,000 crores. Now if you see here, it is now stagnating. 4.29 in 21-22, now 4.66. Not much rise. Now let's go to 23-24. 4.64. Stagnant. No increase here on the AUM. And 24-25, 4.60. So 4.60. So the assets under management of Indian Railways Finance Corporation are stagnant in the last 2 years. And the reason IRFC has just one customer, the Indian Railways. That's like running a business with only one client. If they stop borrowing, like which is happening now, and we can see the growth is vanishing. And this leads us to the next challenge, a risky shift in strategy. And इसके बाद हम जो दूसरा चार्ट देखेंगे वो इससे रिलेटेड है. Because अगर वो बिजनेस ही आपका stagnant हो गया है, any company will try hard to diversify, and that's what they are doing. So let's move to the next slide, which is about the diversification risk. So you can see for the first time in the last 40 years, IRFC has decided to diversify. तो 40 साल में अभी पहली बार they are diversifying their revenue base. So कौन से areas हैं? Number 1 is the metro rail project. Number 2 is the PPP linked SPVs. Third is the other railway linked entities. Fourth, तो ये ट्रेडिशनल बिजनेस है जहां से 90% रेवेन्यू अभी आ रहा है. So let's understand these 3 new areas and the risk associated with them. So मेट्रो रेल प्रोजेक्ट्स में तो एक है इंटरसिटी और एक है इंट्रासिटी. तो ये तो हम सबने देखा ही है कि किस तरह मेट्रो नेटवर्क हर सिटी के अंदर चल रहा है. एंड दूसरा इवन इंट्रासिटी, लेट्स से नासिक टू सूरत और अहमदाबाद टू जयपुर. सो ये 2 एरिया में IRFC now wants to focus. Second is the PPP linked SPVs. तो ये क्या होते हैं PPP linked SPVs? So these are joint ventures between government like Ministry of Railways or state government and the private players. So for example, a metro rail corridor or a freight terminal where both the parties are there, where in a public private partnership. And there is a model called SPV, special purpose vehicle to execute it. Other railway linked entities, now railway ecosystem player, there we have station redevelopment firms, coaching manufacturing, logistic arms. So उसके जो रेलवे से लिंक्ड है एंटिटीज, तो वहां भी बहुत स्कोप है कंपनी के लिए जाने के लिए. बट इट इज इजियर सेड देन डन. इतना आसान नहीं है कि इन 3 एरिया में IRFC इमीडिएटली will start getting good business. First big risk is the credit risk. Not all borrowers are government backed. So अभी तक जो IRFC बिजनेस करता था तो वो पूरा गवर्नमेंट बैक्ड था, तो कोई चांस ही नहीं था डिफॉल्ट का. बट लेकिन अब जब वो पीपीपी और अदर मेट्रो रेलवे प्रोजेक्ट्स में आ रहे हैं तो डिफॉल्ट के चांसेस ज्यादा बढ़ जाते हैं. सेकंड बिग रिस्क इज द एग्जीक्यूशन रिस्क. लैंड डिलेज, कॉस्ट ओवररन, दैट इम्पैक्ट इंफ्रा SPVs. And we have seen in the past, post 2008, how infra company or the big power companies got entangled because of, lack of land acquisition and other issues. Third is the policy risk. Metro funding depends on state politics. One political shift or change of government, and you can see repayments may stall. So from zero risk business to political and project risk, this is a big change for the company. So ये bond risk क्या है IRFC के लिए? So अभी तक जितने भी bond issue IRFC ने किए हैं domestic और international market में, see they all are in a way coupon based. So for the first time IRFC has taken a permission to raise zero coupon bond. Now ये इतना आसान नहीं है. So let's understand this in more detail. Now zero coupon bond क्या होता है कि उसको आप 100 रुपए का बॉन्ड 95 और या 96 में बेचते हैं एंड कोई कूपन नहीं होता है. सो द डिस्काउंट बिकम्स अ रिटर्न फॉर इन्वेस्टर्स एंड ये एक साथ आप जब उसको रिडीम करते हैं तो सारा पेमेंट एक साथ ही होता है. सो अगर 10,000 बॉन्ड के इशू 10,000 करोड़ के बॉन्ड इशू किए तो जो रिडम्पशन होगा 5वें साल या 10वें साल वो एक साथ 10,000 का रिडम्पशन होगा. अब इसमें एक बहुत बड़ा रिस्क क्या है? मार्केट एपेटाइट. देयर इज अ वीक डिमांड फॉर फ्रॉम इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टर. वन, these are PSUs, and second, there is always a risk like which is happening right now, when they are getting into metro and other projects. So बहुत weak demand होती है zero coupon bond की. If the institution is very sound, then maybe they can raise it. Second is the locking funds at unattractive rate. So discount भी जो आप देंगे zero coupon bond में वो एक तरह से रिटर्न ही है इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए. तो वो आप किस तरह का कॉल आज लेंगे ऑन इंटरेस्ट रेट? लाइक इंटरेस्ट रेट आर नाउ फॉलिंग. इफ सपोज दे हैड रेज्ड द फंड 4-5 months बैक, सो क्या होगा कि आपने ब्लॉक कर लिया इंटरेस्ट रेट और बहुत हाई इंटरेस्ट रेट में कर दिया. एंड सेकेंड, जो पूरा प्रिंसिपल ड्यू होगा वो लमसम होगा. 5 साल के बाद आपको एक साथ उसको वो पैसा देना है तो उसके लिए भी आपको पहले से ही प्रोविजनिंग करनी पड़ेगी अकाउंट्स में. नाउ देयर इज अ गुड एग्जांपल ऑफ PFC, पावर फाइनेंस कॉर्पोरेशन. Now they also for the first time came out with zero coupon bond and they had to sell it. So ये कहानी जरा और डिटेल में समझते हैं. So in March, PFC received government approval to raise between 2,000 crore to 6,000 crore via 10 years zero coupon bonds. Now on April 30th of this year, a 6,000 crore issue was sold due to subdued demand and market oversupply. And second, on June 9th, another rupees 2,000 crore issue because they reduced the total corpus, and that also failed as investor demanded higher yield, and investors were demanding around 6.2 to 7.2% then PFC was willing to offer. Now ये final chart है NIMS का. So अगर हम NIMS देखें 1.44, 1.45, 1.56, 1.39, then 1.38, 1.42. Now ये जो निम्स थे ये निम्स आते थे ट्रेडिशनल रेलवे बिजनेस से. नाउ कंपनीज गेटिंग इनटू मेट्रो एंड अदर प्रोजेक्ट्स एंड दे आर होपिंग दैट द मार्जिन्स विल गो हायर. सो पहले एक बार वो समझ लेते हैं मार्जिन्स क्या है एंड देन विल अंडरस्टैंड वेदर दे विल बी एबल टू एग्जीक्यूट. नाउ द कंपनी इज टारगेटिंग ए निम ऑफ मोर देन 2% गोइंग फॉरवर्ड. सो अभी क्या निम है? 1.42 और 1.38 के अराउंड है. नाउ दे आर सेइंग दे विल गेट ए निम ऑफ मोर देन 2%. And the reason is, so NIM जो थे, they used to be around 35 basis point for projects and 40 basis point for rolling stock when IRFC was working with railways. Now the margins are going to be around 100 to 150 basis point in metro and the other new areas where they are diversifying. So typically the margin are going to be nearly 3 times of what it was earlier. तो अब जो IRFC margins की story सेल कर रहा है कि मार्जिन्स आर गोइंग टू बी 3% देन व्हाट दे यूज्ड टू बी अर्लियर. तो ये अभी इस पे कॉल लेना मुझे लगता है कि investors should wait and watch and let's look at next 3-4 quarter to see whether company is actually getting those margins, because हमें सिर्फ margin side ही नहीं देखना चाहिए, हमें the kind of capital that it will need and whether that the money invested is coming back or not, because these are private projects. So इसमें कॉल लेने से पहले हमें 3-4 क्वार्टर देखना बहुत जरूरी है. So while the stock is looking attractive, but the hidden cracks are there, whether it is disbursement, where we have seen a complete freeze in the last 2 years, over reliance on Indian Railways, and that in a way is now getting threatened. Companies planning to diversify, but this is a very risky diversification. Zero coupon bond, experimental bonds, let's see how they fare there. And finally the margin shift, with they are talking the high margin, but whether they will be able to get those margins. As you can see, there are more negatives than the positive. और जो ये story अब build हो रही है is going to be very challenging for investors to make money.
Hey everyone, 90% of viewers scroll past our channel, leaving Mr. Subscribe all alone. Don't let him cry today. Hit that button. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next one.